This episode of Distraction is sponsored by OmegaBrite CBD, formulated by OmegaBrite Wellness, creators of the #1 omega-3 supplements for the past 20 years. OmegaBrite CBD, safe, third-party tested, and it works. Shop online at OmegaBriteWellness.com. Hello, this is Dr. Ned Hallowell for Distraction, here with a special episode made possible by our wonderful sponsor, OmegaBrite Wellness. And again, Bright is spelled B-R-I-T-E, OmegaBrite Wellness, creators of OmegaBrite CBD. Since their sponsorship of this podcast began, we've gotten some questions from listeners about how to start taking OmegaBrite CBD. So I've invited my good friend and the founder of OmegaBrite Wellness, Dr. Carol Locke, back to the podcast to share her knowledge with us. It's so nice to have you on the podcast again, Carol.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, it's wonderful, 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 wonderful to have you. Just before we went on, you mentioned some new research about CBD. You want to share that with our listeners?
Yeah, it's an interesting study. It's a survey, so it's not a double-blind placebo-controlled study, but it is a survey of 547 parents from a Facebook group who are using different treatments for their autism spectrum disorder children. And what they asked is, did any of these people use CBD for their children? 40% had used CBD for their children. And a remarkable, at the end, 78.8% said they were skeptical at the start, but 72% said their children had a better quality of life after taking it, with some pretty significant benefits that they saw. And I found the study to be very interesting because we don't have much research on children. And this gave us kind of a window into what people are seeing, what they're using, and what we want to study in the future.
That's wonderful. How long were the kids on it?
They don't say. They started them on it, and it's just a Facebook group that is on autism spectrum disorder, and they asked them a series of questions on what the benefits that they saw were. And okay. I can kind of run through those with you because if you want, I think it's very interesting for people to be aware of. 56% saw a positive mood in their children. 52.7% saw reduced anxiety. 45.5% saw stress relief. 40.5% saw increased appetite or nausea control. 38.2% saw improved sleep quality. 29.5% saw improved communication, 29.1% improved motor skills, 20.9% reduced pain, 19.1% improved cognitive function, and 12.7% a reduction in their pharmaceutical prescriptions.
That's quite an array of benefits.
It was. I mean, it's what we hear from people, but I thought it was pretty remarkable report. And again, this is a survey. This is parents who are self-reporting what the diagnosis is in their children. And there's no blind. They know that they're giving CBD. They've chosen to. But it is interesting information for us to have.
Yep, absolutely. Let's get to the original question that we had. What is the best way to start taking CBD?
Well, that's a great question. And I think it's very important that you start in a way that will give you the best success. So what we recommend is identifying the benefit that you're looking for. So you can kind of keep track what you're looking for, whether it's a stress reduction, anxiety reduction, help with sleep, reduction in aches and pain, improved focus, mood, whatever it is that you're seeking. Then you want to get a notebook so that you can keep track of how you feel and any changes in how you feel. You want to choose the type of CBD that you want to use, whether it's a tincture, a soft gel, capsule, or a gummy, or whether you're going to use topical CBD.
How do you decide? You said you want to You've got different
Well,
choices.
just deciding is a personal choice. Some people feel it's easier to take a soft gel capsule and just swallow it. Some people want to take a gummy. They feel more comfortable with the gummy. Some people want to take a tincture and kind of feel that is a quicker onset in the tincture.
What is a tincture?
A tincture is an oil or an alcohol solution, but we use an oil, and that's an oil that a CBD oil has been added to. So you can take the CBD in a liquid form with a dropper, and dropping those drops or the dropperful underneath your tongue. And that's a absorption rate. It usually occurs in about 30 minutes.
Mm. And does CBD have to build up in your system before you feel the effects?
It doesn't have to build up. You may require a higher dose before your particular body feels an effect, but there is no need for it to build up, say, to a steady state in your bloodstream. You're going to take a dose or you slowly increase it over 3 days or 5 days until you begin to feel a benefit.
And how will the person know if the CBD is working or not?
It's pretty clear. People report when they reach a dose, they go, oh, then they feel a benefit. They feel less stress. They might feel less back pain. They say, oh, I had a really deep sleep. They know. And so it's not a subtle thing. It's kind of like you go, oh, I'm feeling this is helping me. And you may want to increase it, but you kind of are going to be adjusting it personally. Ned, when you started, how did you first feel on it, and how did you choose the dose that you're taking, I think, 4 capsules of full spectrum a day? How did you get there, and what was that like?
The way I do most things, just trial and error, and it did nothing at first, and so I just kept increasing it until I noticed a positive result. And
then when you hit kind of a sweet spot, you noticed it.
Yeah, exactly. You said I'm taking full spectrum. What's the difference between full spectrum and broad spectrum?
Full spectrum has the CBD. It has minor cannabinoids, so it has CBC, CBG, and CBN in it, and those are very important and provide a lot of benefit. It has terpenes in it, and it has less than 0.3% THC. Mm-hmm. Broad spectrum has the THC removed completely and often has less minor cannabinoids, which are very, very important and give a lot of benefit.
And is it safe for kids?
Well, CBD in children hasn't been studied in a child without a resistant epilepsy, such as Dravet syndrome or Gusto syndrome. So the science is still out on that, and we need more studies. What we don't know is how CBD affects neurodevelopment in typical children without a resistant epilepsy. That's something we don't know, and that's a big question.
But in the report you mentioned at the beginning, they all were on autism spectrum?
Those were a study, of autism, parents with children that had autism spectrum that were using it. 547 parents were surveyed. 40% were using the CBD.
Okay. And does CBD interact in any way with other medications?
It can. CBD is cleared by the liver in the cytochrome P4550 system, and it is cleared by the enzyme that also is involved in clearing grapefruit. So often you'll have medicines that have a grapefruit juice or grapefruit warning on them, and CBD has that same warning in that medicines that are cleared by that enzyme in the liver may be affected by the CBD dose, or the CBD dose may be affected by the medicine. So that's something that you would want if you're on any medicine that has a grapefruit warning on it or has an effect on your liver function, to talk with your doctor. It's always a good idea to talk with your doctor before taking any supplement or CBD and say, this is what I want to do. Review your medicine, your medical history, and keep an eye out. And so that grapefruit warning is something that you'd want to look out for. And those medicines that can be affected include blood thinners such as Coumadin, some antibiotics and antimicrobials, different anti-cancer medicines, antihistamines, anti-epileptic medicines, some blood pressure medicines, some cholesterol medicines, some erectile dysfunction medicines, GI medicines, some heart rhythm medicines, mood medications. If you're on valproic acid, you'd want to be certain to be reviewing that with your doctor for liver function. Different pain medicines. So a whole variety of medicines, if they are cleared by the liver, can be affected. And that's something that's really important to be aware of.
Well, as always, you're so informative, and I'm so thrilled to have you as not only a friend, but as a sponsor of this podcast. That's the time we have for today. To learn more about OmegaBrite CBD, go to OmegaBriteWellness.com. Distraction listeners can save 20% on their first order by using the promo code PODCAST2020. Okay, remember to reach out to us with your show ideas, comments, questions. We take them very seriously and do our best to answer them all. Email connect@distractionpodcast.com. That's connect@distractionpodcast.com. Distraction is created by Sounds Great Media. The podcast is recorded and mixed by the brilliant Scott Persson, and our producer is the delightful, talented Sarah Guertin. I'm Dr. Ned Hallowell, and thank you so much for listening. The episode you just heard was sponsored by OmegaBrite CBD, formulated by OmegaBrite Wellness, creators of the #1 omega-3 supplements for the past 20 years. OmegaBrite CBD, safe, third-party tested, and it works. Shop online at OmegaBriteWellness.com.